So Starlink is up and running. It has gone into beta testing and there seems to be uniformly good news. Users are reporting tears of joy at finally being able to stream Netflix. And come rain, snow or storms, its speed seemed to be holding up pretty well. With the program set to roll out in Canada, prospective beta testers are positively giddy at the thought of being able to give up their Xplonet accounts. Australia is also in the queue to receive satellite internet through Starlink's subsidiary Tibro, because Australians live upside down. On seeing all the complaints about HughesNet, Viasat and mobile carriers, my first thought was to thank the internet gods for the fast and cheap internet we have in India. We have cheap internet here for the same reason that we have cheap anything. Intense competition for customers. And as Starlink begins to compete with the global internet giants, hopefully the same principles will hold true. But, as with everything, there is a problem. This report from Cowen Analysis came out recently and it pointed to a very inconvenient fact. As per the calculations, using numbers from regulatory findings as well as public statements, they calculated that if each satellite was 20 Gbps on average, then across the whole of the US, Starlink would only be able to support 5 lakh customers at 100 Mbps. A quick back-of-the-paper analysis reveals that they're probably right. So was this whole thing, the satellite launches, the beta testing, the excitement, all for the fact that 500,000 of the 3.5 billion people without access to broadband would finally be able to stream films and video? Was it all just media frenzy that follows all of Musk's ventures, no matter how misguided? Now, it is important here to add the caveat that in the report it states that with oversubscription, Starlink would be able to support 3 times as many people as the initial estimate, or 1.5 million. But even in a developed country like the US, that doesn't even come close to covering everyone who doesn't currently have access to broadband. That figure is estimated to be around 40 million people. And the actual numbers are likely to be higher than that. That is a problem, especially because it means that for Starlink, if demand far outstrips supply, there will be no download pressure on price. Are you worried? Well, don't bring out the stress balls just yet. See, there need not be only one type of plan. If you consider that even at 25 Mbps, you can run Netflix pretty easily, then you realize the network capacity could be 4 times as many connections. Secondly, oversubscription is only estimated at 3x. Let's take the case of a person who uses his connection to download 1 terabyte of data every month. That's still an average of only 3.1 Mbps. Of course, the peak load will be higher, but this still gives you an indication of how much bandwidth is required for a good internet experience. Let's say peak load is 10 Mbps. Then that means that a 10x oversubscription model is easily possible. Every internet company does this. Once we put all these numbers together, we can have a rough estimate that Starlink should be able to support 10 million connections. The next question is whether this number is enough for Starlink to survive. For that, we need to check how much revenue a subscriber base of 10 million could generate. And the answer is plenty. 10 million people paying around $1,000 per annum means that Starlink could get 10 billion revenue out of it. Now, I don't know anything about how much it might be costing Elon Musk for these satellites. Some estimate around $500,000 for manufacturing the satellite and putting it up into space. Then there will be ground stations, and Starlink will have to pay their employees something. But I'm sure $10 billion is enough to cover it with some leftover, especially once you factor in the cost of the terminal. That would instantly put Starlink above many competitors immediately. Keep in mind that the speeds that Elon is promising absolutely blow the other satellite networks away. And those companies already earn a tidy sum of money each year. Unless something goes horribly wrong, Starlink should almost certainly vacuum up all their customers. And this revenue estimate doesn't even factor in institutional buyers like corporates who may want to work from remote locations, and trading firms which would benefit immensely from the low latencies promised by Starlink. They spend a ton of money for dedicated lines to the stock exchange. But with laser interconnects, Starlink would be faster. Then there are passenger airlines which have crappy internet right now and would switch instantly to Starlink, should such a service become available. That market alone is estimated to be worth $5 billion in a few years of time. Here's the thing. The report is absolutely right in saying that Starlink will not be able to cover majority of customers. And that's not a flaw. Cities and suburbs are supposed to be serviced by cell companies and broadband companies. Starlink's purpose is to open up the world. Live anywhere, work anywhere, and you'll still have the option of reasonably fast internet. A village in India doesn't need connections to each and every household. Just give us a few terminals and we'll figure it out. Just to shore up our argument, here's something else to consider. The tech in these satellites will not remain static. As some are retired and new models go up, the bandwidths will increase. The satellite that goes up in 2030 is not going to be the same that went up in 2020. From all the excitement in various communities, you can see that they can't wait to get access to internet services that we in the cities take almost for granted. And to confirm that Starlink is not pursuing something absolutely ridiculous, all you need to see is that there are others pursuing this too. OneWeb may have gone bankrupt, but its shares have been bought up by the UK government and, interestingly, Bharti Global. Jeff Bezos is also launching his own satellite service, Kuiper. And while they're behind the curve, some financial firms believe that due to their ability to bundle their services together, they might be able to figure out ways to get ahead. The main challenge, according to Musk, is to bring down the cost of the satellite dish. A problem that may be difficult, considering the cost and sophistication of the equipment used. They'll also have to fend off competition from one of the most ruthless businessmen alive. Probably. And remember, Amazon has a lot of services it can bundle together to offer value to the customer and build up their market share. Plus, they'll have to play politics too, as the leadership of many countries will want their own favorites to establish a monopoly of the waves. There are significant hurdles still left to overcome in terms of regulatory compliances, pricing, and technology. While we did see that it handles rain and snow pretty well so far, there are still several drops in signal that occur. But we don't really need to get into that right now, considering the system is still in beta testing. Right now, the pricing for beta testers in the Better Than Nothing program is $500 upfront for this cute-looking terminal and $100 a month thereafter. That being 35,000 rupees and 7,000 per month is not all that relevant for those of us in India. Elon has said that India will be getting Starlink sometime in the middle of next year. Jonathan Hoffler, the VP of Starlink, has already clarified that pricing will be adjusted to suit local international markets. Just in case he's listening, I think I'd pay around 3,000 for a box that could beam internet from space and I could take with me anywhere. And yeah, I would have to have a plan that could be activated, deactivated month on month. They already have 800 satellites up there and they have to pass over India. So, might as well put a compelling plan together and create some additional revenue. These satellites are Gen 1, so they don't have laser-based communication between each other. And so they have to be ground stations for them to bounce signals off of. But once the next generation of satellites take flight, it will be an obvious thing to offer internet absolutely everywhere. So hold your ground, people of little to no internet. I'm all for skepticism and thinking critically about the products and services we consume. But with respect to the contents of this particular report, I think Starlink will be okay. Anyway, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Like, share, subscribe, and start a conversation below to get more videos like this in your recommendation. I'll see you really soon. Bye.